Hello and welcome to Money Markets and More with me, Dominic Frisby, on a chilly morning from Warsaw in Poland. And today's piece is all about decision making and the decline of the family in the West. And before I crack on, I just wanted to flag a couple of things. Wearing my comedy hat, I'm taking an evening of curious songs on a mini tour in the spring. There are shows in London, Crazy Cocks, these are brilliant, Somerset, Surrey, Essex and Hampshire. Tickets make great Christmas presents, so please take a look, and there are links in the description. And number 2, my new album, It's All True, is out. CDs make great Christmas presents for errant uncles, so check that out in the Dominic Frisby shop, link in the description. So to today's piece, why so many bad decisions? So I've recently been looking at my family tree on one of those ancestry websites, and I was amazed to see just how big some of the families were in the 19th and early 20th century England. Having 9 or 10 brothers and sisters was not unusual. Today, families are much smaller, and all sorts of reasons have been proffered for this. Why have families got smaller? Matt Ridley argues that families are smaller as people grow wealthier and live longer. In poorer countries, you might have lots of children, knowing that a significant number will not make it through pregnancy, childbirth and early adulthood, let alone the teenage years. With the longer, safer lives that we now have in the West, you can have 2 or 3 kids and know that the likelihood is they will make it safely to adulthood. Here's a stat for you. In 1850, life expectancy in Britain was 40 for men and 42 for women. Today, it is double that. It's largely because of infant mortality, but be grateful you are alive in Britain today. You get to live twice as long, or indeed wherever you are. But when people themselves are asked why they don't have more children, the most commonly given reason is cost. People cannot afford to have more kids. And the biggest expense of bringing up a child, government aside, because the state, as we know, takes half of everything you will ever earn, is somewhere to live. We can no longer afford to buy the large Victorian homes our ancestors built to house their families. So just putting a roof over your children's head is a problem enough. And I've written endlessly about house prices being a function of cheap debt-based fiat money, to put it literally. And it's quite easy, therefore, to attribute declining family size, to the housing market and thus to fiat. The cost of raising a child to adulthood is now over 200 grand. Add in school fees and you can double that. That's to age 18. Most kids now stay at home well into their 20s. And if you look at who has big families today, it's most unusual to see an ordinary middle-class family with 5 or more kids. It tends to be only the very rich who can afford it, the very poor who get state aid and also thus can afford it, especially if housing is covered. It's not as bad as it used to be, or as good, whatever you want to word, but it is still a thing, or the very religious. And on that note, my friend Simon Evans argues, and I'm paraphrasing, that we have smaller families because religion has died. One primary purpose of religion, he argues, is to get you to reproduce. Without religion egging us on, many of us will take the sex, but we might forego the added burden of having to bring up the ensuing children. Now, there's probably something to all of those explanations, the religious one, the wealth one, and the lack of money in the housing. But whatever the cause, families have got smaller. That is indisputable. And my parents divorced when I was just a few months old. And I hardly saw my father at all when I was young, due to various court rulings. And that led him to set up an organisation called Families Need Fathers. And he wrote about his divorce at great length and to considerable acclaim in a book called Outrageous Fortune. My mother worked and I went to a boarding school, so I never grew up with lots of brothers and sisters or a big family. I'm an only child. It's a life I've never known, and I don't want to kind of sound sad or anything. It's one I've always wanted and wished for. How I would love to have been one of H.E. Bates' darling buds of May. I imagine we all would, though real life is never quite as idyllic as fiction. And here's the H.E. Bates idyllic family, darling buds of May, as depicted by AI. AI is just so good. I only ever knew one of my grandparents. The other three died before or shortly after I was born. That's that life expectancy thing again. So, I'm always quite envious when I see, for example, those Asian families with several generations, nanny and granddad, mum and dad, and the kids, and perhaps even their kids, all living under the same roof. I know it's crowded, but it's also kind of idyllic, particularly if you have a big enough house. Sorry, it's chilly and my nose is running. Now, when I travelled around Latin America, I adored those large Spanish colonial homes built around a courtyard. Different parts of the family could occupy different apartments, so they had some privacy, but at the same time, they were always close together. Now, I once listened to an audiobook. I can't remember what it was, but it was all about the name of it. It was all about willpower and decision making. The reason I can't remember the name is it always happens to me with Kindle and audiobooks. You don't look at the cover every time you open the book, and the cover reminds you what the book is you're reading and who wrote it. And so with a Kindle and audiobook, you often forget who it is, what it is you're reading or listening to. Nevertheless, the author argued that we make different decisions when we're being monitored. For example, if you believe in God and you believe God is all-seeing, the decisions you make will be informed by that. You will be less likely to sin, for example, if you think God is watching. Same applies to CCTV. Similarly, if you have a large family about you, they monitor and look after you. You are answerable to them. Secrets are harder to keep, and that informs the decisions you make. And this is especially the case when choosing a partner. Old school families will have even made that choice for you. And they will have often looked for different qualities that you might look for. They're bound, for example, to be thinking more about the long-term good of the family, stability, family alliance, the likely durability of the relationship, the sort of characteristics in a partner that might be good for you, that kind of thing, rather than, say, the hotness factor, which might be your main priority, certainly as a young person, or somebody that you think is cool, or suits your, looks cool with. And broadly speaking, a decision taking by someone with a strong family infrastructure around them, where brother, sister, mum, dad, uncle, aunt, nan and granddad, they all have some input, and so their cumulative wisdom is all added in, is more often than not going to be a better decision than one made by somebody with no family around them. Now, as you know, the great decline of Britain and Western Europe is something that preoccupies me a great deal. And I wonder how it is that so many bad decisions seem to be made at every level of society, particularly at the top, and such short-term decisions too. I'm not saying I only make good decisions, by the way. I make lots of bad ones, lots of them. But I would like to venture a possible explanation. The decline of family. We make more bad decisions without the added wisdom that comes with the infrastructure of family around us. The cumulative wisdom. And if you extrapolate that from the personal all the way up through society to a national level, the same dynamic is in place. So the tentative conclusion of this piece is that the decline of family has led to worse decision making at every level of society. How to explain the decline of family? I blame high house prices. And I blame high house prices on fiat. Therefore, fiat leads to bad decision making at every level of society. And by the way, I'm sure declining family size also explains the West's inability to defend itself and its culture and its history. Anyway, rant over. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please come and see my shows in the spring. Ticket links in the description. Also to the shop. Until next time, goodbye. Have a lovely day.